Kristoff, you are a philosophical practitioner and you work with individuals and you work with groups and you work with organizations, but traditionally, psychologists usually work with individuals, with groups, with organizations. What is the difference between the work that you do as a philosophical practitioner and what a psychologist does?
But first, I wouldn't agree with you when you say traditionally it's psychologists who do this job, because traditionally it was philosophers who do the job. Huh? So psychology grew out of philosophy some 200 years ago or something. And I must say now, it's not a frustration or anything, but I see that, if, for example, in Belgium and Holland, where I live, a lot of reflection work in organizations is done by psychologists. What I think, nothing wrong with that, but the main task of a philosopher is reflection. And I have also a hypothesis why it is not the case that philosophers are not doing this work, because they are too high in the cloud. They are too busy with abstract things, they're too academically doing their job, so that an organization doesn't like them because they're too high in the sky. So it's my hypothesis.
Okay.
But in the history you can see that a lot of good philosophers have been good psychologists as well, like Nietzsche and Kierkegaard, for example. And you also have good psychologues, the cognitive therapists, for example, who are very philosophical. So the two disciplines need each other, because of course you work with human beings. And I think the attitude, the behavior, the world of, the experience of human beings has always been the target of psychologists. You could say, okay, the difference between these fields and the medical field is that the doctor works with the body, the psychologist works with the emotions, and the philosophical work is the mind and the thinking. But that's a too narrow distinction, because it's an intermingle of all the three of them. But it doesn't mean that it is the same. There is some differences, and I would say the main difference is that a philosophical practitioner or a philosophical counselor from a Socratic background, which I am, is working in a superficial way with people.
What do you mean by superficial?
So what you work with is what people superficially say. So what they literally say, not what you think that they should say, or what you think that they mean, or what their feelings behind what they say. All these things are left out of consideration.
Okay, so you don't theorize about the hidden psychological depths in the person.
No. That's a Platonic history, I think, that a lot of psychologists still use, and also medical people. Everybody who is skilled and claims to be an authority in the field. He says that I know more about you than you know yourself. And the reason why you come to me is because I'm the one who is going to tell you what's the real question behind your question, and so on. No. I don't follow this tradition. I think you should take into account and take literally what people say, what they think is a problem or not a problem at all. What they conceptualize as a problem is also very interesting. So you look at the way they think, and not the way that they should think, or that you think that they think, or the feelings behind what they think is all left out of consideration.
I understand. Let's take a specific example. Let's say that in individual philosophical consultancy, somebody comes to you with a feeling, says, I don't know, somehow life doesn't lead, I don't know what to do in life. Things are boring, I feel empty. How would what you do be different from what a psychology would do with that person?
So the first thing I would do is confront what they say with each other. So I feel boring, and I don't know what to do with life. That's what she says to me. So the first question I would ask is, what's the relationship between these two? Between feeling boring and not to know what to do with your life. So everything that is handed to me in a literal way, I give it back, and I ask about relationships between them. And then the thinking comes from the other person. So it's up to them to see if there is any relationship or not. Maybe she says, well, no, it was just one sentence after the other. I was not thinking about it. Okay, so then we'll try again.
Okay. So let's say the woman says...
why is it a woman, by the way?
Because you said she.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't know. I didn't realize.
Yeah. So this counselee says, now that I think about it, it's two different things. I feel both boring and that I don't know what to do in life.
Okay. So in this sentence you say that you feel that you don't know what to do with your life. And the first sentence you say, I think I don't know what to do with my life. So my question would be, is it a feeling that you don't know what to do with your life? So how can you feel that you don't know how to do some things?
Okay, so I see the beginning of a possible process. Where would it lead? What would happen after half an hour or an hour or 3 hours?
Okay. So I have a whole way of a strategic plan in my back of my mind, which has to do with the Socratic movements I'm trying to establish. Also in groups, it's the same procedure, and it has to do with focusing on a central opinion, something that's beyond all the particular stories that people tell. What's the main thing that they think about what they are experiencing? So to have some focus. If you have a focus on a particular assertion, then we look for arguments to say, well, why is this assertion right or not right? And then the third movement is to see what is the validity of the arguments according to the person himself. So it's not me who's saying, well, there's something wrong with your arguments there. It's up to them to see if they suit the announcement or not.
And your role in this process is
So
what?
the only thing I do is being silent and asking questions.
I see. And what might be a possible result after an hour, 2, 3, with that particular counselee that we took as an example?
Okay, so the first result is that they say, okay, I didn't know that I was thinking this because you give it back to me in a literal way. I have to think about, do I really take this into account in what I'm saying, or is it just something that I was feeling or whatever? So they have some ordering in their own thinking. So that's also very important that they say, well, it's nothing new actually, because I knew everything that I said. I already knew this, but it's structured in some way that I'm much more aware of what I'm thinking now. And the second part is that they get critical about themselves, that they're not so sure again about what they are thinking. And it's not a self-criticism that leads to some doubt, that existential doubt, that people get distressed or anything. It's a contrary. So because they are critical about themselves, they are also able to investigate it together with others in a better way than they used to do. Because if they're not aware of what they are thinking themselves, they defend what they want to say in a very emotional way or an aggressive way. Now they have much more ease because they know, okay, that's what I think, that are my arguments. So I'm open to any criticism. We can talk about it. So that's another result, that they get critical towards themselves, but also towards dealing with comments or criticism about their opinions.
Let me be provocative a little bit. Let's say that I'm coming from the psychological perspective and I say, oh, this is very nice as a logical exercise. But really the person that we are talking about has this feeling of boredom or I don't know what to do with my life as a result of some hidden conflict with my parents from my childhood, or perhaps some other issue.
All right.
So you're really dealing with a surface in a way that is not significant. What would you say to that person?
Well, all these three things that you say now is from a different order, I would say. This, like, for example, this feeling. If somebody feels something, okay, it goes very far philosophically to question if this is right about expressing her feeling. But the other things that you say is that I don't know what to do with my life. I would doubt this because you decided to come here to talk with me, so that's already something. You decided to talk with me, so there's something in your life that you decided to do. Otherwise, it could be that you are sent by somebody that you don't know what to do with your life, but anyway, you decided to come to talk to me, so that's something to start with. And the other thing is that you say it has to do something with my early youth.
Let's say. I mean, if we are doing Freudian psychology, then it would be youth.
Well, they can choose what they want to focus on, so I'll let the focus to the client. If she says, well, I want to investigate if it's true, if it comes from my early youth, for example. Or if it's valuable, if it's true, it's one thing. If it's valuable to use it as an argument, it's another thing we can focus on. And could you legitimize everything you feel and you're confronted with now with going back to your early youth?
So in a way, you are putting the psychologist or the psychological voice into a philosophical scrutiny too. You're making
course.
it another one of the topics
Yes.
to investigate.
Of course, yes. And that has to do with the difference in target. You could say, I'm not there to help the person, but in an indirect way, it's true. I mean, I'm helping somebody. Of course, I would not do the job if I not was convinced that somebody would be helped. Otherwise, I would do it just because I like it, and by coincidence, other people like it as well. No, you want to help some people, but in a different way. It's like it's an indirect way, and you don't say this is what you need because I'm the one who thinks about it this way. No, if she comes up, they mostly know themselves. People know themselves much more than you think. What the solution is to their own problems. They are aware of it much more than you think, is my experience. So it's enough to ask some questions, to have this all on the table, and to have this scrutinized in some way that they can on their own value what they have said and the arguments that they have used, and then it's up to them to say what can you use that will help yourself. So it's more a bricklayer. I'm a plumber. You know, I'm putting out all the tools on the table that is handed out literally by the client, and it's up to them to say I can use this and I can use this. And
Very interesting. Thank you very much,
all
Kristoff.
right, it's my pleasure.